Marcus Rivera stared at the new procurement director across the mahogany desk. 23 years of perfect supplier relationships, zero quality failures, budget targets beaten every quarter, all worthless apparently. Ms. Whitmore, I don't understand. My performance reviews are irrelevant. Victoria Whitmore's manicured fingers drummed against her laptop. I'm implementing AI-driven procurement, automated bidding systems, dynamic supplier algorithms. The words hit like hammer blows. But our suppliers need personal relationships. Trust takes years to build. Trust is inefficient. She slid a termination letter across the desk. Clean out your office. Security will escort you. Marcus picked up the paper. His hands trembled slightly. The company logo at the top seemed to mock him. 23 years. Gone in 23 minutes. The hallway felt different as security flanked him. Colleagues avoided eye contact. Whispers followed his footsteps. His office looked smaller somehow. Family photos, industry awards, a coffee mug from his first supplier conference. All going into a cardboard box. His phone buzzed. Text from his daughter. Dad, tuition payment is due next week. Everything okay? Everything was not okay. Marcus had started at Meridian Manufacturing fresh out of college. Back then, procurement meant handshake deals and long lunches, building relationships, understanding people behind the purchase orders. He'd modernized gradually, embraced technology where it made sense, but never forgot the human element. Suppliers called him directly when problems arose. They prioritized Meridian's orders during shortages. They offered exclusive deals because they trusted Marcus personally. That trust had saved the company millions. Now Whitmore wanted algorithms instead of relationships, spreadsheets instead of handshakes. She'd arrived 3 months ago from a failed tech startup. Impressive MBA, zero manufacturing experience. The board loved her innovative approach. Marcus loaded the last box into his Honda. The parking spot he'd used for over 2 decades would belong to someone else tomorrow. The security guard actually looked apologetic. Sorry, Mr. Rivera, orders from upstairs. Not your fault, Jim. But someone's fault. Definitely someone's fault. At home, Marcus sat in his kitchen staring at severance papers. The package was decent. 60 days of pay, health insurance for 3 months, a non-compete clause that would make finding similar work nearly impossible. His wife Elena found him there an hour later. How was work? He looked up. 30 years of marriage. She could read his face like a road map. Oh, Marcus, what happened? The story spilled out. Whitmore's accusations, the termination, the escort from the building. Elena listened without interrupting. Her hand found his across the table. We'll figure this out, she said finally. But Marcus wondered how. At 58, starting over felt impossible, especially with that non-compete hanging over his head. His phone rang, unknown number. Marcus, it's Tony Castellano from Precision Parts. One of his oldest supplier relationships. Tony's family had run the company for 3 generations. Hey, Tony, I should tell you. I know, word travels fast in this business. Tony's voice was grim. Got a call from some AI system today, automated bidding process. They're cutting our contract by 40%. Marcus felt his stomach drop. 40%? Tony, that's below your cost basis. I know. Been working with you guys for 15 years, never missed a delivery. Premium quality, doesn't matter to their algorithm. What are you going to do? What can I do? They've got me over a barrel. Either take the cut or lose the business entirely. After Tony hung up, Marcus stared at his phone. This was just the beginning. Whitmore's system would destroy relationships built over decades. Suppliers would flee. Quality would suffer. But Meridian would learn too late. The next morning brought more calls. Supplier after supplier facing impossible demands from Whitmore's automated system. Some were walking away entirely, others accepting unsustainable contracts that would bankrupt them within months. Marcus took notes. Old habits. Why do you care? Elena asked over breakfast. They fired you. Good question. Why did he care? Because it's not just about me. Hundreds of people work at Meridian. Thousands work for our suppliers. When this system collapses, they'll all suffer. And you think it will collapse? Marcus buttered his toast slowly. I know it will. The question is when. The answer came sooner than expected. Week 2 brought the first crisis. Meridian's primary steel supplier, Harrison Metals, had refused Whitmore's contract terms. The AI system automatically shifted the order to the lowest bidder, a company in Southeast Asia with impressive credentials and rock-bottom prices. The steel arrived 3 weeks late. Quality control found stress fractures in 60% of the shipment. Production ground to a halt. Marcus learned about it from his former assistant Janet, who called him in tears. It's chaos here, she whispered. Ms. Whitmore is screaming at everyone. The assembly line's been down for 2 days. They're talking about missing the quarterly delivery targets. What about Harrison Metals? She says going back to them would prove the old system was right. She'd rather find another new supplier. Marcus hung up and immediately called David Harrison. Marcus, heard about your situation. Damn shame. Dave, I need to ask you something. Hypothetically, if Meridian came back with a reasonable contract, would you consider it? Silence, then. You know I would. For you, anyway. But that woman burned bridges, made some pretty insulting accusations about our quality standards. What if she wasn't involved in the conversation? What are you thinking? Marcus wasn't sure yet, but an idea was forming. That evening, he drove to Meridian's headquarters. The night shift supervisor, Rodriguez, had worked there since Marcus's early days. They'd developed mutual respect over the years. Rodriguez, I need a favor. Mr. Rivera, what are you doing here? I need to see the current supplier performance data, unofficially. Rodriguez looked around nervously. I could lose my job. People are going to lose their jobs anyway when this system collapses. I'm trying to prevent that. 5 minutes later, Marcus was reviewing printouts in Rodriguez's office. The numbers were worse than he'd imagined. Quality metrics plummeting, delivery failures up 300%, cost savings evaporating due to rework and delays. How is Whitmore explaining this to the board? Says it's temporary adjustment pain, growing pains from modernization. Marcus photographed the reports with his phone. Documentation might prove useful later. The real bombshell came in week 4. Janet called again, this time from her personal phone. Marcus, you need to know something. I wasn't supposed to see this, but there's been a data breach. What kind of breach? Someone hacked the AI bidding system. They've been manipulating the algorithms, steering contracts to specific suppliers. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. Any idea who? The digital forensics team thinks it's an inside job, someone with administrative access. The pieces click together. Whitmore's insistence on automated systems, her resistance to reverting to proven suppliers, the convenient lowest bidders that kept winning contracts despite terrible performance. Janet, I need you to be very careful. Don't let anyone know you told me this. There's more. The FBI is getting involved. This could be fraud charges. After hanging up, Marcus sat in his home office staring at his computer screen. He'd been building a database of supplier information, contact details, contract histories, performance metrics memorized from 23 years of experience. Initially, he'd told himself it was just habit, staying informed about his old industry. Now he realized it might be something more. His phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. Stop digging or you'll regret it. Marcus stared at the screen. Someone was watching him, someone who didn't want him uncovering the truth about Meridian's procurement disaster. He forwarded the message to his personal email, then screenshotted it. If someone was threatening him, they'd picked the wrong target. Marcus Rivera didn't scare easily. The next morning brought news that changed everything. Meridian's biggest customer, Automotive Dynamics, had canceled their contract. 6 months of delayed deliveries and quality failures had pushed them to a competitor. The cancellation represented 40% of Meridian's annual revenue. Stock price dropped 18% in a single day. Marcus's phone rang constantly. Former colleagues reaching out, suppliers asking for advice, industry contacts wanting his perspective on Meridian's troubles. One call stood out. "Mr. Rivera, this is Amanda Foster from the FBI's White Collar Crime Division. We'd like to speak with you about Meridian Manufacturing." Marcus agreed to meet that afternoon. Agent Foster was younger than expected, sharp suit, sharper questions. "We understand you were recently terminated from Meridian's procurement department." "That's correct. We're investigating potential fraud in their supplier selection process. Your former colleague suggested you might have insights." Marcus chose his words carefully. "I have concerns about their current procurement methods." "What kind of concerns?" For the next hour, Marcus explained the relationship-based system he'd built, the suppliers who'd been pushed out, the quality failures and delivery problems that followed. Agent Foster took detailed notes. "Do you have any evidence suggesting deliberate manipulation of the bidding process?" Marcus hesitated. The information from Janet was second-hand. The threatening text was ambiguous. "Nothing concrete, but the pattern is suspicious. Proven suppliers eliminated in favor of unknown companies with questionable performance. We'll need you to document everything you know: supplier relationships, historical performance data, timeline of changes after Ms. Whitmore's arrival." "Am I a witness or a suspect?" "Right now you're a resource, someone who understands how the system should work." Driving home, Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. This was bigger than his personal termination, bigger than wounded pride or financial concerns. People's livelihoods hung in the balance. That evening, he called Elena into his office. "I need to tell you something. The FBI is investigating Meridian for fraud." Her eyes widened. "Are you involved?" "As a witness, they want me to help document the procurement irregularities." "Is that safe? You got that threatening message." Marcus had been wondering the same thing. Someone had already shown willingness to intimidate him. How far would they go to protect their scheme? "I don't think I have a choice. If I stay silent, the fraud continues. More people get hurt." Elena sat down heavily. 23 years of loyalty, and this is how it ends? Maybe this is how it begins. The next few days blurred together. Marcus worked 18-hour shifts documenting supplier relationships, performance histories, contract details, timeline correlations between Whitmore's decisions and subsequent failures. The picture that emerged was damning. Every supplier change had benefited companies with minimal track records. Many shared common ownership structures, shell companies within shell companies, all leading back to an investment group based in the Cayman Islands. Someone was using Meridian's procurement budget as a personal ATM. Agent Foster reviewed his findings with obvious interest. "This is excellent work. You've connected dots we hadn't seen." "What happens next?" "We execute search warrants, seize computer systems, interview suspects." "Including Whitmore?" "Especially Whitmore." Marcus felt a mixture of satisfaction and anxiety. Justice was coming, but justice could be messy. His phone rang as he left the FBI office. Janet again. "Marcus, something's happening. Federal agents are in the building. They've seized Ms. Whitmore's computer and escorted her out in handcuffs." The news broke that evening. Local television led with footage of Victoria Whitmore being arrested at Meridian's headquarters, fraud charges, conspiracy, money laundering. The reporter mentioned that the investigation began with information provided by a former employee. Marcus's doorbell rang at 9 p.m. Two men in expensive suits stood on his porch. Neither looked friendly. "Mr. Rivera, we represent certain business interests affected by recent events at Meridian Manufacturing. I'm not interested in whatever you're selling. We're not selling anything. We're here to discuss your cooperation with federal investigators." Marcus felt his heart rate spike. These weren't FBI agents. "I think you should leave." "We think you should listen, carefully." The larger man stepped closer. "Accidents happen to people who interfere with business arrangements, especially people with families." The threat was unmistakable. Marcus looked past them to the street. A black sedan idled at the curb, tinted windows, no license plate visible. Get off my property. Think about what we've said. Your testimony could be very damaging to people who don't like being damaged. They walked away slowly, deliberately. The sedan pulled away without headlights. Marcus locked the door and immediately called Agent Foster. "We'll provide protection," she assured him. "This actually helps our case. It shows how desperate they're becoming." "What about my family?" "We'll station agents outside your house, and Mr. Rivera, don't go anywhere alone." Elena was terrified. Their daughter, away at college, wanted to come home immediately. "Stay where you are," Marcus told her. "This will be over soon." But he wasn't sure he believed it. The next morning brought unexpected news. Meridian's board of directors had called an emergency meeting. Stock trading was suspended pending major announcements. By noon, the story was public. Meridian Manufacturing was filing for bankruptcy protection. Decades of reputation destroyed in months. Hundreds of jobs eliminated immediately. Marcus felt sick. He'd wanted justice, not devastation. Agent Foster called that afternoon. "We've arrested 3 more suspects. The investigation is expanding beyond Meridian. This appears to be a systematic scheme targeting multiple manufacturing companies." "How many companies?" "At least 12 that we know of, possibly more." The scope was staggering. A coordinated attack on American manufacturing. Foreign investment groups using corrupt procurement officials to systematically destroy domestic suppliers. Why target procurement specifically? Because it's the heart of manufacturing operations. Control the supply chain, control the company, force them to depend on foreign suppliers, then manipulate pricing and quality to drive them into bankruptcy. Economic warfare. Exactly. Marcus spent the following weeks in FBI offices and federal courtrooms. Testimony, depositions, evidence review. The case grew larger daily as investigators uncovered the full network. Victoria Whitmore, it turned out, was a small player, recruited and placed by a sophisticated organization with connections to foreign intelligence services. Her job was to implement procurement changes that would benefit specific suppliers while appearing to modernize operations. The real masterminds remained in the shadows, but their scheme was unraveling. 3 months after his termination, Marcus received an unexpected phone call. "Mr. Rivera, this is James Patterson, chairman of Meridian's board of directors." Marcus had met Patterson briefly over the years. Decent man, old-school manufacturing background. "Mr. Patterson, I owe you an apology and an explanation." They met that afternoon at a coffee shop near Meridian's headquarters. Patterson looked exhausted. "The board was fooled," he admitted. "Whitmore presented impressive credentials, promised cost savings and efficiency improvements. We thought we were modernizing." "What's the current situation?" "Bankruptcy proceedings are moving forward, but we've identified potential buyers, companies interested in Meridian's customer relationships and manufacturing capabilities." Marcus sipped his coffee. "What does that mean for employees?" "Most jobs could be saved if we find the right buyer, someone who understands manufacturing, someone who values relationships over algorithms." Patterson leaned forward. "We'd like you to help with the transition, rebuilding supplier relationships, restoring quality standards." "I'm not sure I'm interested." "The board is prepared to offer you the procurement director position, full authority to rebuild the department, significant salary increase, equity participation in the restructured company." Marcus stared out the window at Meridian's parking lot, half empty now, security guards checking IDs at the gate. "I'll need to think about it." "Of course, but Marcus, we need someone we can trust, someone who puts the company's interests first." That evening, Marcus discussed the offer with Elena. "It's a chance to rebuild," she said, "to do things right this time. It's also a chance to fail spectacularly. The company is radioactive. Suppliers won't trust them. Customers have fled. It could take years to recover. Or it could take someone who knows how to build relationships." Marcus realized she was right. This wasn't about vindication or revenge. It was about restoration. He called Patterson the next morning. "I'll take the position, but I have conditions." "Name them." "Full authority over supplier selection, no interference from algorithms or automated systems, direct reporting to the board, and I want Janet Rodriguez as my assistant director." Done. Marcus's first day back at Meridian felt surreal. The building was quieter, fewer cars in the parking lot, but people smiled when they saw him. Hope was returning. His first priority was supplier outreach. He called Tony Castellano at Precision Parts. "Tony, it's Marcus. I'm back at Meridian. We need to talk." "About time. When do you want to meet?" "How about lunch today?" The conversation was frank. Tony had been burned by Whitmore's system. Trust would need rebuilding, but the foundation remained solid. "You're asking me to bet my company's future on Meridian's recovery. I'm asking you to bet on our relationship, same as always." Tony smiled. "When you put it that way." Similar conversations followed with Harrison Metals, Advanced Electronics, and a dozen other suppliers. Some were skeptical, others were eager to resume old partnerships. All wanted assurance that the relationship-based system was truly returning. Within 6 months, Meridian's quality metrics had returned to pre-Whitmore levels. Delivery performance improved dramatically. Customer confidence began recovering. The bankruptcy court approved a restructuring plan that preserved most jobs while eliminating debt accumulated during the procurement disaster. Marcus found himself busier than ever, but it was satisfying work, building instead of documenting destruction. The FBI investigation concluded with guilty verdicts for Whitmore and her co-conspirators. The foreign investment network was exposed and sanctioned. Other targeted companies were warned and protected. Marcus testified at the final hearing. "Manufacturing depends on trust," he told the judge. "Trust between companies and suppliers, trust between workers and management, trust between businesses and customers. The defendants tried to weaponize that trust against us." The judge sentenced Whitmore to 8 years in federal prison. Justice, finally. A year after returning to Meridian, Marcus received an industry award for excellence in procurement management. The ceremony was held at the same hotel where he'd attended his first supplier conference decades earlier. Elena sat at his table, beaming with pride. Janet Rodriguez, now assistant director, had brought her family. Tony Castellano and David Harrison were there representing the supplier community. In his acceptance speech, Marcus reflected on the journey. "This award isn't just for me. It represents everyone who believes relationships matter more than algorithms, everyone who chooses trust over suspicion, everyone who builds instead of destroys." The applause was thunderous. Later at the reception, Agent Foster approached him. "Congratulations, Mr. Rivera. You've rebuilt something important here." "We all did, together." "Any regrets about getting fired?" Marcus considered the question. The termination had been devastating, humiliating, financially painful. But it had also revealed corruption that might have continued for years, saved other companies from similar attacks, restored integrity to an industry he loved. "No regrets," he said finally. "Sometimes getting fired is the best thing that can happen to you." The next morning, Marcus arrived at Meridian early as usual. The parking lot was full again. Production lines hummed with activity. Supplier trucks lined up at the loading dock. His office overlooked the manufacturing floor. Workers moved with purpose and pride. Quality inspectors checked every component carefully. Supervisors consulted with operators before making decisions. Relationships, trust, communication. The old methods weren't outdated after all. Marcus's computer chimed with an incoming email, a supplier inquiry from a new company, impressive credentials, competitive pricing, automated bidding system integration available. He deleted it without reading the details. Some lessons, once learned, were never forgotten. His phone rang. Tony Castellano. "Marcus, we're thinking about expanding our precision machining capabilities. Want to grab lunch and discuss it?" "Absolutely. Same place as always?" "Same place as always." Marcus smiled as he hung up. Some things never changed. And that was exactly how it should be. The intercom buzzed. Janet's voice. Mr. Rivera, the board meeting is in 10 minutes. They want your quarterly supplier performance report. On my way. Marcus gathered his papers and headed for the conference room. The numbers would be good, quality up, cost down, delivery performance excellent. But the real success couldn't be measured in spreadsheets. It lived in the handshake deals and long lunches, the phone calls at midnight when problems arose, the trust built over decades and restored through determination. Victoria Whitmore had called his methods old-fashioned, inefficient, obsolete. She'd been wrong about everything else, too. As Marcus entered the boardroom, James Patterson stood to greet him. Marcus, excellent work this quarter. The turnaround has exceeded all expectations. Thank you, sir, but we're just getting started. What's next? Marcus looked around the table at faces he'd learned to trust. People who understood that business was ultimately about relationships between people. Next, we keep building, one supplier at a time, one customer at a time, one relationship at a time. The old-fashioned way? Marcus grinned. The only way that works. Outside the conference room windows, trucks were arriving with raw materials, suppliers who'd chosen to bet on Meridian's recovery, partners in the truest sense. The future looked bright, and it was built on foundations that would never go out of style. Trust, integrity, relationships. The old methods weren't just surviving, they were thriving.